Recently I made this video about the upcoming King of the Hill revival, breaking down some of the new details we've learned about next year's aged up continuation. One of those details is that Bobby will be in a relationship, and by far the most common comment I got was from fans who are going to be very upset if Bobby is not with Connie in this new series. And on one hand, I understand, their connection was a big part of the original show. They're a very likable couple. But on the other hand, I was a little surprised. Bobby and Connie dated when they were like 12 years old, and they weren't even together for the last 7 seasons of the series. But fans are very attached to Bobby and Connie as a couple. So today, I'm gonna look at the entirety of their friendship turned relationship turned friendship again and answer one question. Do Bobby and Connie belong together? Hey, this video is brought to you by two things today. One is my official compilation channel, Johnny Too Cozy, where I'm re-editing tons of my old videos into themed compilations, long videos that are great for sleeping or drawing. And second, my wonderful patrons who get tons of extra content exclusive to Patreon. We're currently in the middle of season 2 of our BoJack Horseman audio commentaries. Check those out if they interest you. Thank you so much for your support. I couldn't do it without viewers like you. Connie was introduced midway through the first season of King of the Hill when the Supanusum phones moved to Arlen, right into the Hill's neighborhood. While the focus of the episode is more about Hank and Con's initial differences, it also shows that from the beginning, Bobby and Connie really got along.
He's new in town and he's only got one friend.
Yeah, but at least you're not tied up.
The pair release Doggy so that he can play with Ladybird, only for him to run away. While searching for him, they bond over their dad's similarities and differences before they also release Ladybird to try and track down Doggy. None of this goes well, but this first episode showcases Bobby and Connie's immediate connection and friendship, which acts as a nice juxtaposition to Hank and Con's rocky start as neighbors. But the romantic connection between Bobby and Con Jr. doesn't begin until towards the end of season 1 with the episode Plastic White Female. Worried about going to Joseph's boy-girl party, Bobby practices kissing on Luann's beauty school mannequin head, which, as you may recall, Hank was very stoked about.
You must have got it wrong. Maybe he just fell on it or something.
Connie isn't really in this episode much at all, but the end reveals that she has also got some of those same insecurities that Bobby does, and she practices kissing on her hand.
I want my first kiss to be perfect. You know, something sweet I can keep with me my whole life.
I really love this moment because even though Connie insists that the pair kissing each other is just practice and not the real thing, this is exactly that. It's a really sweet moment. Two friends going through uncomfortable changes, helping each other through them. While Connie may not have seen it as a real first kiss initially, she almost certainly did later in life.
Was that right?
I think so. Do I have any hickeys?
One other aspect of the whole Bobby x Connie relationship that I don't think is talked about all that much is that there is a tiny bit of a love triangle with Joseph. Granted, it's not a major part of it and it only is really explored in a couple of different episodes, but it certainly is there. But the next big step in the Bobby/Connie story is the son that got away, the first hint at any sort of love triangle with Joseph. Bobby and Connie get in trouble at school for distracting each other during class, with their parents both obviously blaming the opposite's negative influence on their child. When they both get grounded, they end up running away together, but not before Joseph joins their escape. Initially, Connie is super annoyed by Joseph's intrusion, and the pair butt heads.
Bobby and I don't like to do that.
Well, Bobby and me do.
But they decide to go to the caves, and during this adventure, Connie and Joseph start to connect a little more, with Bobby starting to feel a little left out, especially after Joseph and Connie hold hands with each other when the light goes out. This is a pretty important episode in terms of Bobby realizing how much he likes Connie. He basically resigns entirely to the idea that she and Joseph are going to become a couple, even though it hurts him, when in reality, Connie and Joseph hadn't really even considered the idea.
You're upset together, and I'm upset all by myself.
Bobby even offers to sacrifice himself for their well-being, telling them that they can eat him if they need to, which definitely went a long way in terms of how Connie sees Bobby. Even though they already had a connection, this was a moment that changed her perception of him for the better.
Bobby, that is so kind and brave.
For the rest of season 2, Bobby and Connie are mostly explored through their connection as friends, and in some really fun ways. The episode Bobby Slam forces them to wrestle each other for a spot on the wrestling team, something that neither of them are eager to do. Rather than go through with it, they put on a huge WWE-style wrestling show for the school, entertaining their way out of their jam. But in season 3, another super important episode in their relationship occurs, and they call it Bobby Love. In this one, Bobby starts dating an older girl named Marie, who finds him to be very funny.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
The entire Bobby/Marie story is at the forefront of this one, and it's mostly about Bobby dealing with his first real crush and relationship and the heartbreak that comes in the aftermath. But happening alongside that are these scenes where we can see that Connie is super bummed that Bobby is dating someone else.
Bobby?
Bobby gets his heart broken thoroughly, and in retaliation he eats a massive steak in front of the vegetarian Marie as his own sort of way to cope with the breakup, leading to this very sweet scene between him and Connie at the end.
Oh, when you finish, you want to come over to my house and watch some television?
While Bobby and Connie's chemistry was always apparent in their friendship, and there were hints at Connie feeling more for Bobby, this appears to be the first real time where Connie actively considers Bobby as a romantic partner, spurred on by his dating another girl. So while Bobby has obviously expressed interest in Connie, at least to Joseph and the audience, this was the first time it was very overtly reciprocated. And so, as you might expect, the follow-up Bobby x Connie episode, Love Hurts and So Does Art, is arguably the most important. This episode is basically all about Bobby's crisis about his relationship with Connie being taken to the next level.
About that kiss.
Oh, it'll be magical. Nothing will ever be the same between you and Connie ever again.
This is partially because of what happened with Marie and how difficult things got after they kissed, and mostly represents Bobby's fear that he might ruin his friendship with Connie in the process of elevating their relationship. As a coping mechanism for the stress, Bobby starts overeating at the Showbiz Deli, primarily chowing down on a sandwich filled with chopped chicken liver. This actually ends up giving Bobby gout, but even before he realizes this, he's using the symptoms as an excuse not to go to the dance with Connie.
Your toe will be better by next week.
Or it could be worse.
This is a really interesting storyline because while it might appear that Bobby simply doesn't want to give up eating at the deli, in reality, Bobby continues to eat at the deli so that he doesn't have to take Connie to the dance due to that aforementioned fear of ruining their friendship, which of course does nearly ruin their friendship when Connie finds out that he won't give up the liver.
You would rather stuff yourself and roll around in your stupid electric cart than take me to the dance?
Bobby does eventually come to his senses and realize that he wants to be with Connie after she lies to him and tells him that she's going to the dance with someone else, and Bobby makes the long trek to the dance to try and make his pleas to her.
What about your gout?
My dad says when you really want something, you play through the pain.
So this is the big turning point. Prior to this, Bobby and Connie's relationship was all friendship and flirtation, but after this, they are officially a couple. And honestly, I didn't really remember it taking this long, but from Connie's introduction to their official coupling, it took about 2.5 seasons, and the relationship lasts about 2.5 more seasons. This is kind of the key section for the series for us to analyze here. Prior to this, there's some great development built on their friendship and chemistry, but now is what it looks like when we actually see them together as a couple. There are many episodes that feature both Bobby and Connie in this era, but we're going to mostly take a look at the ones that put a focus on some aspect of their relationship. And the very first to do that after they get together is the episode Aisle 8A, really one of the only episodes that is super focused on Connie. I think most people remember this one. It's when Connie gets her first period while staying with the Hills, forcing Hank to try and help in a hilarious fashion. But the surrounding text of this episode is all about Bobby and Connie as a couple. Bobby is excited and nervous to have Connie stay at their house, going through all kinds of preparations to make sure things go right, and initially things do go great.
I'm glad you're here. We make a good team.
Well, let me hook you up with some more suds.
Aside from a slightly awkward moment as they fall asleep, they had a great time the first night. But the next day, Connie's attitude is completely changed, and Bobby questions whether or not it was his fault, whether or not he did something wrong.
And I took the liberty of snagging us each a piece of bundt cake.
I just brushed my teeth.
Obviously, this was a hormonal response, leading to Bobby really struggling to know how to move forward with Connie.
My mom says we shouldn't be alone together anymore and that you only want one thing.
Did she say what that was? Because I am so confused.
I really love this scene. It feels like a parallel of that first romantic moment where they practiced kissing with each other, both of them going through major life changes, struggling to adapt to them, and helping each other through it.
I don't want to dump you, Bobby. I still want to be your girlfriend. But for those 4 days when I'm a woman, I don't want to be anywhere near you.
All things considered, Bobby and Connie have a pretty healthy and communicative relationship, especially for 12-year-olds. The next episode about their relationship sort of follows these themes as well, basically trying to help each other navigate these more adult ideas as they get older. In Naked Ambition, their relationship nearly ends because Bobby foolishly helps Joseph try to peep on Luann, making it seem like they were actually trying to peep on Connie. Connie even goes out with Shane with Sanasong in response, the boy that Con desperately wants her to date. After Bobby explains what really happened, they each take off their shirts together, sort of haphazardly exploring this kind of intimacy, even though they don't actually seem to have any real understanding of why. But again, it is them navigating their relationship, navigating these kinds of changes, navigating getting older together. Honestly, if there's any episode in the entire series that is a clear-cut argument for why Bobby and Connie should be together, even into adulthood, it's the next one, Won't You Pee My Neighbor? In this one, Buddhist monks come to Arlen in search for the next reincarnation of the Dalai Lama, believing it may be Shane or Connie. Shockingly, they end up believing that that person is Bobby, which Bobby actually takes to pretty instantly, until he finds out about the Lama's vow of celibacy, meaning that he can't be with Connie if he ends up being the Lama. So, when given this final test, Bobby says this:
I can pick anything I see on this rug.
Yes.
I pick Connie, right there in the mirror.
Made even more meaningful by the final reveal that the mirror Bobby was pointing to was the former Lama's mirror. Bobby chose Connie over a life of reverence. He really truly cares for her. But in the beginning of season 5, Joseph returns to sort of reignite that love triangle. This is the first episode where we hear Joseph's new voice and see his growth spurt, which makes Bobby feel pretty inadequate. Bobby's immaturity really shines through in this episode. In an attempt to help Joseph and seem suave towards Connie, he creeps her out and pisses her off.
You did this so Joseph could watch? You're such a creep.
Oops. Time of the month.
Really one of Bobby's more embarrassing moments. Made worse when Joseph goes to apologize to Connie and the pair end up kissing. Bobby even punches Joseph twice for this, and then breaks up with Connie, though by the end of the episode, they all resolve their differences and the couple are basically still together at the end. But it's a good example of how, though their relationship was pretty strong throughout the series, it wasn't always the most stable. This is probably the most tumultuous event during the time they were together. There are some smaller things that turned Connie off as well, like in Hank's choice when Bobby starts living in Lady Bird's fancy doghouse. He doesn't exactly make himself look like quality boyfriend material in this one. And things get a little rocky in the hilariously titled Kidney Boy and Hamster Girl: A Love Story, in which Bobby and Connie pretend to be high school students with very specific ailments. Bobby does try to do some kind things for Connie in this episode, like take her to the high school prom, but most of his efforts come across as self-serving, trying to prolong his time spent in his high school charade. Bobby, of course, can't keep up the charade for long, but since he helped the high school get no doubt to play at their prom, the older kids throw him a bone and invite him to the prom anyways, an invite he extends to Connie, making it up to her. Overall, there are some fun and sweet Bobby and Connie episodes, many of which reaffirm their relationship even when there's conflict. And that even includes the episode that would ultimately be the end of their relationship, Father of the Bribe. In this episode, in a last-ditch effort to break them up, Con tries to bribe Bobby to break up with Connie. Ingeniously, the pair of them decide to use Con's money to get a hotel room so that they can hang out together uninterrupted. But because they now have to pretend that they aren't a couple, it puts a real strain on their relationship. And over the course of the episode, they actually realize that maybe right now their goals in life aren't aligned.
First time all week we've been alone and you're doing homework?
I'm not going to get into Harvard watching slasher films.
And by the end of the episode, despite the fact that they care deeply for each other, they both realize that maybe they actually should break up.
I think we should break up.
What? But I came here to break up with you.
And the pair end on really good terms, and they remain good friends. And what I love so much about their breakup is that it fits so perfectly with these major milestones in their relationship that led up to this point. Bobby and Connie are always there for each other to help learn and navigate through these major life changes and events. And going through a breakup is no different. That's one of these events. They talk each other through it. They reassure each other that things are going to be okay. And with their time left, they're there for each other.
We've still got 20 minutes left on the room. Maybe we could hold hands one last time?
Of course, though this initially goes well and the pair do remain good friends, that doesn't mean there aren't hiccups. The very next episode, I'm with Cupid, is all about Bobby's regrets, fearing that he'll end up like Bill, desperately wanting Connie back, and truly embarrassing himself in the process.
Cupid is here! He's got one arrow left, and it's going straight into Connie Supernoosenpone's heart.
But for the most part, after the breakup, both Bobby and Connie move on. If I have any issues with their breakup, it's that Connie maybe gets less focus overall in the series once they split up. But overall, they remain good friends who support each other, and they both express interest in other people. In fact, the first real romantic entanglement Bobby has after Connie is with Connie's friend Jordan in season 7's Get Your Freak Off. And not only is Connie totally cool cool with Bobby's interest in Jordan, she actually helps facilitate it, fully wingmans him while they're at a concert by pointedly swapping places with Bobby so that he and Jordan can be next to each other. Bobby shows interest in a lot of girls over the final 7 seasons of the show. There are occasional twinges of jealousy, like when Bobby wants to see Connie's cousin, Tid Pow, or when Connie expresses excitement over working with her crush, Russ.
What could you possibly be studying?
Mainly him. He's brilliant.
But for the most part, they just stay good friends and Bobby pursues other people. Sometimes foolishly, like the students he's advising as a student counselor, sometimes fleetingly, like the girl he plays DDR with in Japan. But after I'm with Cupid, there isn't really much drama in regards to Bobby and Connie's former relationship. They just remain great friends. So, to recap, the pair were flirtatious friends for about 2.5 seasons, they dated for 2.5 more seasons, and then they went back to being friends for the final 7 seasons of the series. Though the pair has really great chemistry and their relationship is incredibly likable, I think people are overlooking the fact that, when it comes to its characters and character relationships, King of the Hill is a pretty realistic show. Bobby and Connie dated when they were 12 and 13 years old. While Hank and Peggy may have gotten together in high school and never separated, part of the entire point of the series is that Bobby is a drastically different person than his parents. It's very hard to imagine him continuing to date the same person through to young adulthood. On top of that, Connie and Bobby have entirely different goals in their lives, and at least for their young adulthood, it's hard to imagine those things lining up for them. So when it comes to whether or not Bobby and Connie should be together in the incoming revival series, in which both characters will now be 21 years old, let's look at things logically and from a story perspective, both in terms of what makes sense from the themes we've seen in their relationship, as well as the dramatic possibilities we can expect. I think it is unlikely that Connie and Bobby end up going to the same college. Connie expressed interest in going to Harvard, and though that doesn't necessarily have to be the outcome, it's clear that she has loftier ambitions when it comes to going to school than Bobby does. Knowing that Bobby will be working at a fusion restaurant in Dallas, it seems very unlikely that Bobby and Connie will have been together through college. We do know from Pamela Adlin's interviews that Bobby will be in a relationship in the new series, which I think very likely means he'll be dating a new character. And when it comes to dramatic potential, I'm sorry, but I don't think Bobby and Connie being a couple when the show picks up is particularly interesting. You know what would be interesting though is Connie moving home, having this long shared history with Bobby, which creates conflict within their existing relationships. I think them just being a couple again is kind of boring, but there still might be lots to learn about Bobby and Connie's friendship from where the show last ended through high school to where the new show is picking up. And who knows, maybe that eventually leads to them reconnecting in a more meaningful romantic way. But I think the show should want to earn that if they're going to move that direction. And furthermore, I think that the more important aspect of their relationship is actually those ways we saw them support each other while navigating these major changing stages of their lives. Even though that took place mostly within a romantic relationship, for me, I'm far more interested in seeing that dynamic continue than something romantic just for the sake of romance. I think there are a ton of possibilities when it comes to how the King of the Hill revival treats Bobby and Connie's long-standing friendship and history. But personally, I really hope it doesn't just default to them being a couple again, because it just feels a little bland and uninteresting. It doesn't feel like it really serves the characters or creates for any interesting stories or drama within their changing lives. As for the big question, do Bobby and Connie belong together? Well, that's maybe a bit more complicated. They certainly belong in each other's lives. They seem to be each other's most important friendship in a lot of different ways. Obviously, belonging together is not as cut and dry of an idea as it might seem in movies or TV, but I do know that if they don't end up together romantically, even eventually, it seems like they should always be there for each other. So I guess my answer is, yeah, Bobby and Connie belong together, even if that doesn't mean they necessarily need to be a couple romantically.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.